Call the meeting to order at what, 7:03?
Can you come to order? It's 7:03.
No,
We are recording. We are unmuted. We are good to go. So, agenda.
Okay, I
I'd
don't-
like to propose that we change the order of the whole business,
Absolutely.
because I think it's most imperative that we discuss them and get some comments on the record for the Parks and Rec Master Plan.
we have a second for the motion to revise the agenda.
Second that.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Okay, so after, we should probably review the minutes from our, oh, this
Because
is
it's a
special
special
meeting,
meeting.
that's
Yeah,
right,
there you
yes,
go.
yes, so we can ignore all that, okay, okay. Parks and Rec Master Plan.
So I did my best to
Yes, thank you.
synthesize all the discussion from last time to be as coherent as possible, because there was a lot and we went over a lot of the same themes. So I put together those, and if anybody has additions or addendums, this is the forum in which to discuss.
You
Plus,
did
we
really
have.
well at summarizing it all, by the way.
Yeah.
Charlotte sent out some information.
Yes.
Yeah.
Charlotte did
That
send
I
those.
thought was a very good categorization proposal, different than theirs.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, I laid one out too.
Yeah, oh, good.
I didn't see Charlotte.
Yeah.
I.
Well, when it
would-
came out a few
I would
minutes ago.
like to spend time at this meeting planning how we are going to make our comments. We spent a lot of time at the last meeting discussing details and our reactions. And I think we need tonight to think about, we have a month to submit comments to the town council. And I think we need to decide how to proceed to do that, because I think there's going to be a fair amount of work to prepare this. I think we want to present an alternative classification. That's going to take some time to put together. Plus, there are comments that were not captured in these notes. So I guess the first thing I would like to know is exactly what is happening town council wise. At this point, we have a deadline of July 11th to get comments to the council. Is that right, Michael?
I believe so. We've requested that you have all of the comments to us by July 11th from every committee, just to give every possible committee time to convene special meetings. Jennifer and I have been figuring out where everyone slots in.
Okay, so nothing's going to the council on the 11th,
I think it's the following meeting.
the following, whatever that.
Yeah,
following
that's the-
Monday?
Second Monday, I think it's the 25th.
Well, whatever. I
Yes,
mean,
yeah.
Yeah, it's whatever it is.
Yeah.
So we have a scheduled meeting on July 9th.
Right.
So my thought is we have a goal of having proposed comments by our meeting on July 9th.
Mhm.
So we can discuss them, add, subtract, whatever at that meeting. Does that sound, I mean, like a goal for
Yeah.
us?
Yeah,
Because just knowing what I've seen so far from various comments, there's a lot of stuff to pull together here. It's not, I mean, this is a great start, Michael.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more to go.
I did
Yeah.
not expect it to be every possible complaint. I just
Yeah.
wanted to get
I
the.
appreciate
Yeah,
you
yeah.
Getting
Yep.
what you did.
yes, yes.
And
And-
one of the things that we also should do is, there are a lot of things that are not necessarily relevant to our committee's charge,
Mhm.
that are hot button issues recommended in this plan, that we can at least avoid those.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
we should, we do have a general charge, but, to ignore the community center section.
Yeah, I
And,
mean,
yeah.
all of that, the rec facilities and so on.
Yeah.
I think we do need to look at some of their staffing things as it relates to
Yeah.
Maintenance and trails
Yeah.
and stuff.
Just to start off with that, because I can jump in and tell you a small update, I have 2 10-hour-a-week people on trails maintenance right now. So we put money in the budget, I think I mentioned this in the previous meeting, but we currently have now 2 folks, they started last week. We've already been out to a couple of parks, we've replaced a couple trails, we're starting to clear stuff off of the walkways, cut down stuff that's overhanging, take pictures of stuff that's too large. And then with all the big stuff, they'll be communicating with our tree warden to determine whether or not we think we leave it up and just let it lean away, or if we need to intervene. So at least in that regard, I think this will be a good test year to find out what 2 10-hour-a-week people can, when directed, accomplish over about 4 months of funding. And that will inform us on how much maintenance do our parks need in general.
Great.
So,
Yeah,
But one thing that you heard back from Jim, from
John,
John,
yeah.
it might be worthwhile to have
Yeah,
these two.
yeah. Tomorrow, myself, Ken, and Charlotte, and Charlotte's husband David, are meeting, John Hankins at
Okay.
the Historic Society and do the reroute of the Nipmunk through,
perfect.
yeah,
And these interns might, it's not a town trail,
Oh,
but
But it's a trail in the town for
But
a
it's a trail
project the
in the-
town is
it's
working
listed
on.
in the master plan.
yes, it is.
that's one of the things we have to fix. Yeah.
But it might be that if the town had the discretion to direct these interns to help work with John.
I'll see if they are in tomorrow. They're keeping fairly flexible hours because it's
Yeah.
only a few hours a week and they're trying to send them out on the best days to work. But yeah, I'll see who's available tomorrow and have them
Yeah.
connect with John Hankins. Just
Yeah,
frankly, I think it's just that's good for the town, and we're already working with the CFPA on a whole bunch of other things. So that's good.
It's at
yeah,
2
the,
o'clock.
and, if they're totally new to trail maintenance, to start understanding of some of the thoughts that go into routing.
One of the gentlemen, he's a young man who's in college, is in his very early 20s. So I think that'll be useful. He wants to go into this field. The other one is has been a trail enthusiast for some time, is a bit older, and is actually working as our part-time housing inspector. So now he's the housing inspector / trails maintenance guy. We here in the town of Mansfield like to wear many hats at once.
At which you are probably the top candidate.
There's that scene in the Seuss book where you just keep putting on the hats.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like that.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, Bartholomew Cobble.
Okay, so.
Randy probably has
how
it
are we gonna
memorized.
Proceed here
Yeah.
to get our comments ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the 11th or whenever. Ken, as our secretary, you usually pull together a draft for us.
And I would be willing to start with Michael's synthesis and take input tonight. I have input of my own,
Yeah,
but what I don't know is how to get it to a pretty much final form without meeting in between now and next
yeah,
week.
Yeah.
I wonder whether people would it be legitimate for people to individually send me markups and additions to your comments for compilation?
Yes, so the way this works is, and we've done this before when we were doing our big codification of our zoning regs, bringing it all up to modern and then moving online, catching as many typos as we could, is folks who were on the regulatory subcommittee all took chapters. And then you had 2 people on each chapter section to double check each other. And then they put together notes and sent them to us. And then we pulled them all together and sent them to our consultant. So if everybody wants to take a section, or you have 2 people on a set of sections, put together the notes, validate against each other. Generally speaking, two people sending emails back and forth is not a problem as long as you are not making decisions. And you can't act on anything, so that's not gonna necessarily be a problem. If you have a designated email for these kinds of things, we always recommend if you're sending these kinds of emails back and forth, it can always be FOIA, don't use a personal email, yada, yada, yada. However, I don't think that's likely in this case. So all of my government waivers aside, what we can also do is if you want to have time to get together to do it, what I'll just do is I'll book a room here. And if you have time in the middle of the day, I can just put together a room here for an hour. You come down, work on it. We call it a working session. I throw on the camera and says, look, it's recorded. And then you just have your discussion out loud and it gives you more time. That's not hard. I need 24 hours notice to post it. So that's easy.
Yeah.
And that lets you work through
I'm
sections.
thinking we should, create a couple, even if they're working groups of the whole.
I'm thinking also of having smaller working groups.
Yeah.
And then coming together. I just think it's just easier.
Yeah.
Because this is a good sized group to work on things like this, wording, make sure we got everything done. But it's not as efficient as 2 or 3 people doing it. I mean, and then you can bring it back to the group and get comments. So that's why I was thinking, and I can go with anything, but I think we should have at least 1 or 2 working groups.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking maybe a working group for the general text of our comments. I think there needs to be another working group for this classification, because that is getting more and more subtle and complicated as we proceed. I
Yeah.
mean, if you've seen what Charlotte is coming up with, I mean,
Yeah.
it's gonna, and the thing is, this is a good thing for us to do. I mean, whether we were doing a master plan or not, I think this is a great time for us to think about how we view the parks and how we sort of categorize them and what we
Yeah.
think their functions
Yeah.
are. And I
And
think it's worth spending time doing that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and even such things as deciding what standards we're gonna maintain certain trails to.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's-
and there are some standards. I have a link that I got from Brian for Forest Service.
Brian
standard.
Avery at Joshua's Trust.
I got a link from him for, it's a decade-old document, but it's Forest Service's design standards for accessibility. What I have not been able to do is access what Jay presented to see what standards the consultant used, because Jay presented it it wasn't part of our agenda in the package.
So I can speak a little bit more on that. So we had a meeting with the consultant, specifically the ADA sub-consultant. They are not using, they are legal experts in ADA. They're basically policy wonks on ADA. They read the
Yeah.
law, they see the cases, they see how these things go. The problem with ADA is that there is not a produced standard by the agencies which govern the ADA to say this is ADA compliant, this isn't, for certain things, like trails, which would be really convenient and easy. There isn't that. What the folks told us is after you get through things like building accessibility and parking, the ADA is much more of, to use a more colloquialism here, vibes-based system where are you making reasonable progress? If you have improved it, have you taken reasonable accessibility in mind? And it's more of a sanity check in the, are you at least trying? Have you made some progress? It's one of those things where if you're going to pave it, right, well, you've paved it. You should keep accessibility in mind. What that means doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be accessible for wheelchairs everywhere, but there's varying levels of mobility, and so you should have some reasonable efforts to help a broader section of your society. As long as you're doing that, in their words, is the moment you start improving things, as long as you're keeping those things in mind and you're trying, you're really not gonna get slammed by lawsuits that are gonna stick. So you have to be trying, and when you're improving things, you have to be improving them for everyone.
Yeah.
But they didn't give us a set of standards necessarily. They can go and do the crack measuring and the width of those parking spaces, which is what they did. But you know, there isn't, well, trails of this grade at this section meet this for your number of trails accessible in certain percentages of your park. When I asked them, like, are we gonna have to close down trails to meet certain accessibility thresholds? They said, absolutely not. That's not something you have to do. If we had to do that, every national park in the country would fail. So you don't have to worry about that.
I'm thinking that we may wanna separate any ADA response from the master plan response. Admittedly, they were issued kind of as one. But, you know, we have a deadline on to get to the town council on the master plan comments and our concerns with it. ADA is an ongoing project for us to be aware of.
Right,
Yeah.
but there's $500,000
This,
that
yeah,
was discussed at the town
Yeah.
council for ADA accessibility.
yeah,
for
I'm aware,
trails.
I'm aware of
And-
that, but.
And we need to make sure that that isn't imprudently spent.
Yes, that's an obligation.
So I think we had the financial schedule in those 5 documents. If it wasn't, what I can tell you is the 500,000 that was allocated is a lot of that is earmarked for the concession stand at Southeast Field, which is highly inadequate for mobility right now, the bathrooms at Bicentennial Pond, and various restriping and paving of parking lots that are currently have parking stalls, which are supposed to be accessible and are in fact not meeting standards. So a lot of that money immediately is going to building improvements. Which isn't to say you're wrong, you shouldn't do that, but I can say that a lot of that money is earmarked immediately for capital.
Yeah,
Yeah, they've
Yeah.
got a lot of things in the capital thing, and it's very hard to read because it's so tiny.
yeah,
But all of the stuff about trails has a little paren C, close paren, with no indication of what C means.
yeah, I was noticing that.
So I
And the
can't
other
really
thing
make
at-
intelligent
The other thing
comments
is
on it.
Bicentennial Pond, the wheelchair access to the pond has deteriorated to the point to be
Oh, yeah,
unusable.
I think,
Yeah,
I think we could easily spend the entire 500 on what I will call our active recreational facilities.
yeah,
As opposed to team focused recreational activities or special sport
yeah,
focused activities. I would suggest that we need to start thinking about almost all of the parcels that we deal with as preservation land with public access permitted, as opposed to parks.
Well, that's something that we can think about between now and July 11th.
That sounds like you're volunteering for the categorization subcommittee.
Actually, I would like to have input into it, but I think Charlotte made a great start, and haven't seen what you did, Maria.
Yeah,
Mine is just the general thing that I
Yeah,
suggested last
I'm
time.
real
I don't
curious to
have the
know-
detail that Charlotte had. so.
yes, but I'm real curious to know what your thoughts are.
On that specifically? Or in general?
Can I just say yes?
Share some of your thoughts as what the chair appears.
All right, I mean, some of it, I guess the biggest bugbear I had reading through it again was the constant assumption that specialized facilities inhibit open access. I would strongly dispute that. I think it's a misinterpretation of, I'm putting on my ecologist hat now, scale, and how this works with supporting diverse interests. I think a collection of different specialized facilities within the town supports provisioning to community members of diverse interests.
I'm loving that niche theory applied to.
I know. So, you know, I think that, you know, any one community member is going to speak toward their pet interest, but dismiss others if they were just left on their own. And the goal really is within reason and resources to meet as many of the town's diverse interests as possible. So, and that's not to say that we should be trying to collect all possible little esoteric niche activities, but I don't think I would dispute the assumption that specialized facilities inhibit open access, and this comes up again and again
Yeah.
in that report
Yes.
on page 31, 43, and 48 again. Where it's spoken about how subsidizing certain individual interests individualized activity interests should not be done, et cetera, at the, and that we should have a trade-off there, and we should stop doing that and just have all open access things. And the fact is that if every town were to do that, then we wouldn't have any, diversity within the town
No.
of different facilities. Everything would be some generic boilerplate
Yeah.
park with a pavement, and that'd be
Yeah.
it. So,
Big open fields.
I don't make use of the tools provided by the library currently. However, I'm glad to know that they're there should I ever need them.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of my huge issues as I read through that. I really disliked that.
Yeah, and it's, and yet by the same token, they make all this argument.
Mhm.
And then they propose a special use of unleashed dog use at
In a
Duntown
park.
Forest, which is exclusionary.
But last time we were told that that's not gonna happen
It's
in
not
that
gonna-
location,
it's not
right?
gonna
So
happen.
if
Yeah.
that's the case, then we can just say, yeah, that's ridiculous and leave it, and we don't need to waste too much breath arguing on that point because it's already dead.
The
in
the only
water.
thing that can be
But
said
we
is,
need to make a statement.
Right.
I think the
Yeah.
statement
But-
would be, before COVID or whenever
Yeah.
it was 2019, the committee was discussing dog parks and believe River Park is a far more suitable
Yeah.
location for these fees, and we think there should be further exploration.
I don't have a dog, but I would not,
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
May I read,
I would not
may I
resent having
read Charlotte's
dogs.
comment? A dog park in Dunham Town Forest is a travesty.
Yeah.
One of
Yes,
the
yeah.
reasons this area was acquired was its value as unfragmented, undeveloped forest. A dog park would require development, including construction of fences and planting of grass. Further, people might expect the amenities found in cities such as access to water faucets, dog poop bags, and trash cans with regular pickup. Even with trash cans, monitoring the area for dog excrement with cleanup would be needed to take it into
not to
account.
mention, they're not gonna want ticks there.
Right.
exactly.
The wildlife habitat value one would expect from a large unfragmented forest tract would not be enhanced by the sound and scent of a large number of dogs. Neither are dogs running loose compatible with the peace a hiker expects to find in a large forest tract. And I will point out that at least part of it is within the natural diversity database
So
circles.
I would like to go back even further. I don't think it's appropriate for this plan to propose any specific place for a dog park. Our committee has not discussed it. In fact, in the past, we had indicated a place at Schoolhouse Brook Point. So to me, this is premature unless, I think it's appropriate in a plan like that to, encourage the Parks Committee to identify an appropriate area to do this. But to identify it in a plan without our committee having even discussed it, I think it's just completely inappropriate, and I think
Yeah.
that page should just be completely withdrawn. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
all
that's-
right.
that's a
Yeah.
good way of,
Principle.
yeah,
As we told them, because we started with this pack, and
Yeah,
as we told them, it should be their movement to get things going, not us telling them what to do, them telling us what they'd like to
Yeah.
do. And we had talked to them about money for fixing things up, but it should come from the dog community. That's my
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah, and
that's what we
they
told
agreed
them.
on that. That's what they
And they
said.
agreed.
Yeah, yeah,
And then they disappeared.
I'm talking about in terms of town
yeah,
and a document that's guiding us.
yeah.
Shouldn't
Yeah,
be.
I think you're right, Vicky.
We do not need guidance
Oh.
on a specific property unless it has already been agreed, and we have not agreed on this.
No.
So I just think we need to wind this completely back
yeah,
Exactly.
and have a
Yeah.
section about, it's desirable to have a dog park. There's been interest expressed. There's one page that's about that.
Hmm.
And I'd say, fine, let's keep that page, but let's take out anything.
Yeah, specific, yeah.
With regards to a lot of the figures, I would also argue that they include students in the population denominator constantly, but honestly, a lot of the figures in terms of service rates and things like that should be provided with and without the student population
I agree.
in the denominator.
What we were heard.
And the demographics should be with and without the student population.
One of the things that I heard after I received your first comments on 21, and then went back and spoke with Jennifer about the plan, and then spoke with Jay about what he had heard from Jamie, who is was the lead on the project at the consultant, is UConn was not particularly connected to requests to meet and discuss with the consultant about what do you know about what students use your facilities and what's going on with those. So there is a gap, and you're absolutely correct in that there's a gap and it wasn't studied. I think there was an attempt made.
Yeah.
But it's not called out in here that there was an attempt made.
But so what I think I mean though is, so I recognize that what you're saying, that they're not considering UConn facilities.
Mhm.
But my understanding is that's the service rates that are given in the document and the demographics includes students, because according to federal census policy, students are considered part of the resident population here in the
Right.
town.
Yeah.
So then when we look at what our facilities are providing to the residents, there's a denominator of the population that is including the students
That's
in it. And
50%
that is,
larger.
yes, and that needs to be presented with and without students, because I have strong concerns about catering to the interests of an ephemeral population. As much as we want the students to, be here and to have, to be a working component of our community, they are not here for the long haul, and they are not
Yeah.
going to have the long-term interest in protecting the facilities.
Yeah.
So I think that we need to be looking out at how the facilities we have are servicing the long-term residents.
And that was
And that is
older
ignored in
and
the
younger.
report.
One of the things
Oh,
to
yeah.
consider is it might be possible to tease out the student population that's in group housing.
Correct.
But I think it's gonna be almost impossible to tease out the off-campus residents.
Well, but we have the enrollment, I mean, UConn knows.
Yeah.
Yeah, what
We
they're-
know the
yeah.
enrollment at UConn, and they might know who their long-term commuter students are versus local. I don't know if they do or not.
But I think from a demographics point of view with
Yeah.
census data, I think it's legitimate to ask the consultant
Yeah,
to give us statistics without the group housing.
okay, yeah,
Anything else,
Yeah.
those students may be here as graduate students. They may be here year round
Yeah.
for 5 years,
mhm.
and they do use our facilities.
Or they might just be here as graduate students for 1 year, doing a 1-year master's. So I think that that's true, but still, I can tell you as a grad student, I didn't view that town as my home, and like I knew was investing in the long-term parks in the area. I was hoping there were a few good bars and, a few good
Yeah,
places to go for
exactly.
walks, and other than that, my nose was buried in a book anyways,
Yeah.
but maybe I wasn't the typical student, but
That sounds pretty
You're
typical.
close.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tip.
I don't think that
Yeah.
I don't think that their interests, we can't speak to their interests. There are gonna be some that are exceptions to that rule, which is
Yeah.
why I think these stats should be presented side by side with the student
Yeah.
population, without. The one thing I would say about excluding the group housing is that then I would include a caveat that honestly, in Mansfield, a lot of our student residents are in single family.
So, yeah, I have finished pulling together all of the housing department's rental property data and visualizing it on a GIS layer. But we're still figuring out exactly what to do with that and how to look at that
Yeah.
and how I would tie that in with this data I haven't thought
Yeah.
about yet. So there may be a way between UConn's information about who's commuting from where and the maximum number of rental slots and who's living in what rental houses and this to figure out how many people are actually off campus and would be close to
Yeah.
parks.
Yeah,
I mean-
and there's a category of people that are distorted there, that their Yukon address is their home, but they have a room close by the concept of having a place to stay that you don't commute, but, it's, and even there's a little distortion too, is, if you're registered at the Hartford branch, you don't collect this many fees,
Mhm.
but just as long as you take one course in Hartford, you can take your other courses on the main campus.
Oh, there's a lot of noise in the data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They refer to the noise, but they don't make any attempt to dampen it.
Right, and then a lot of what we were talking about in terms of the negativity with which the stats given on the town are regarded throughout the report would probably look pretty different with a different denominator.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And I think the other thing is that it skews the percentage of, this is probably more for the MCC than for us. But if you take the 18 to 24-year-old population down, the percentage under 18 and the percentage over 65 is gonna jump.
Yeah.
Without those apartments existing, I can't think of a particularly large set of UConn students who would come and utilize the community center for its resources.
But they use our trails
Yes.
Yes.
That is.
and they
true.
bike on our trails.
yes.
Yeah. But they've got their own big rec building that's way bigger than this.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's also gonna change so much in the few years that this master plan in this particular way is going to have limited application because so much of where the students are living and everything is going to change in the next few years.
Yeah, and
Potentially.
it's gonna be
Yeah.
harder to tease out those
Maybe,
students.
maybe not.
Mhm.
But
Could.
one of the things
Mary
Mary was surprised that Mayor
We might have
Moran
much better
didn't
data on it.
react to the comment in the plan about establishing a partnership with UConn.
Yeah, right.
Right, exactly.
UConn is a long-term partner with the town of Mansfield.
Yes.
We have varying levels of communication at varying times.
Okay.
So yeah, not knowing about their facilities is one thing, but it's taking the student numbers into account in the population stats.
Yeah.
But they seem to have counted the trails on UConn property. They're showing on the map.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, but they don't,
Because that's the communication, they know that, right? Like, they know.
But that's a maintenance issue that's not the town responsibility.
Mhm,
Right,
yeah,
right,
fair
yeah.
enough.
That's
Because they-
one of the things that has to be fixed.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying there are many levels of issues. here.
yeah, but they're not, I think they're on the map because the layer that I gave to Derek Delai, I managed to find GIS of the Yukon trails.
Well, and Dip Up Trail is not a town responsibility.
No, it's
No.
not. We've already sent that comment off that, we're getting an additional 30%, 33% trails number because we're counting the 15.5 miles of Nipmuc in town in that 50 when it's closer to 30 without that.
Yeah,
and that-
Well, there's a number in the draft report, 1,300.
There's also, because it's a common map on Cooney Rock, I know at least, they counted JT trails. And actually JT does that little section of the connecting trail, and the same thing, Wolf Rock, part of the trails are JT and.
Right.
But by the same token, we want to have them acknowledge the fact that it's not just the town providing recreational facilities. We have a state park that they don't mention.
Right. Yeah.
One other small note I had was that in many places, they talk about the concern for more bike and pedestrian paths and that, it's a common interest within the town. I think that that's true. However, I also think that there's a common counter interest in the town in terms of wanting to maintain historic and rural character in some of the areas, and that isn't alluded to at all.
Well, they don't talk about any of the conservation reasons for acquiring parkland or conservation land. And that's an imbalance. They only think of parks as developed recreational facilities.
These are good comments.
Those are my
Yeah.
notes.
Okay.
I have my wonderful niche writing in here in text. I can lend it.
I'd love to read that. I love taking ecological. Putting them into city planning.
Yes.
Bugged me so much at 5 a.m. this morning.
No, Miranda, could you type them up?
Yeah, I can.
Could
type
you
it.
send them to Ken? So
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
that we can incorporate them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That would be
yeah,
great.
because we got some great phrases
I
there.
did put in a request. I'm sorry I didn't have it because I know that both you, Tom, and Charlotte had requested to get just the text with none of the elements other than the graphics, so that way we can just load up to whatever size we want. I haven't gotten that yet because I haven't gotten the Word document. I have requested it because I think that'd be helpful because there was a lot of small writing on these documents. So
Yeah.
Writing
And-
against
and
the
writing on
wrong
top.
background.
white writing on a light gray with blue behind it.
Or I even found a couple white on white. That was really
Yeah.
good.
Oh, yeah, I noticed that.
It is really hard to read.
Yeah, in a report that mentions accessibility a few times, we should make the report itself accessible.
Exactly.
So I've requested that. I'm hoping that we will have that soon.
One question I have is we've got the basic text. But there are also all of these tables and implementation things that I don't know whether, we should probably focus on the basic text and the 4 elements, but I think the tabulation is also important, at least for the inventory and perhaps the prioritization of where capital goes.
Yeah.
So the operations and implementation plan, the ADA access and transition plan, the staff community engagement summary, the final report. So this is more just what the community values. This was our various instances of speaking to folks.
Yeah, I think that has some interesting stuff for how their survey found our lands are used. But I don't think it's relevant to make comment on it. But I think we should look at it.
Yeah,
The ADA transition plan is a lot of tables of numbers of things that we need, and they break down what their idea of what the phases
Yeah.
mean.
But see all these outdoor trails, you see the sea? What does that
Right,
mean?
yeah. The
I don't think it's copyrighted.
No, and the other thing I was noticing was the parking was exactly the same amount regardless of what was really required.
Yeah, it's a rough price. What we
Yeah.
do know is, what we're expecting,
Michael?
Yeah.
Right, I'm sorry, go
Yeah.
back. Right at the bottom was the Leonard, no, go back up.
oh,
Leonard. Notice accessible route, slope C. Does that mean, and the next one is slope C. Does C mean a rating of how steep the axis is? or the
No, because
trail?
there's seas all the way up.
I don't know. I will ask.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
Yeah.
to me, that's a clue.
Well, there's also shelters and picnic facilities at a sea.
Yeah, but again, maybe it just it's a rate of, instead of being A rating, it's a C rating, whatever that means.
I'll be honest, I blotted it out because when I was looking at this monster table, but that's a really valid point. So I will find out about that. And there's the operations implementation plan, which is this.
I can't even read
I
that.
mean, it's just impossible.
So this for us,
Okay.
this is just a breakdown this was put together by staff on what staff expects the staff requirements going to be, financial requirements going to be, whether or not we want to prioritize it, and what a reasonable timeline is. This was staff, this was the hit list of every possible thing that could be done based on coming out of the plan. And then staff broke down is this already ongoing? When do we think we're gonna be able to start this? And what's our lift, both financially and in time? So this is more of an internal document, for when we're looking at, all right, what projects are we gonna start next?
there did appears to be some that are relevant to our committee, though.
Why is that in the master plan?
I don't know entirely why certain documents are in the master plan and were included in your packet as committee members to review versus what's gonna really be like public facing on the website after things are implemented. That is more of an internal document.
Yeah, if it's internal, why would it be?
In the master
That's-
plan?
That's my only comment.
Yeah, I don't think it will be attached and publicly available. If you have questions about it, it's there.
That was attached on
The
the,
question is, what does it say? And that's a
Yeah,
valid
that's what it says,
question, and I will.
that was
try to get
attached to
that.
the package for the town council yesterday.
Again, given to the council so that the council can see what we're thinking about for those things when
If
they're
it's
just.
given to
working
the
on it.
council, it's public.
I mean,
Yeah,
if it's held by us here, it's public, unless it's got something to do with money we're spending or contracts we're entering into. So. Yeah, we don't particularly see most things in the public.
Yeah.
But then the final document is the financial sustainability policy. I don't know if you would like to comment on this. It is more of a planning document, but it's only. It's mostly related to activities as opposed to the spaces, so.
yeah,
Up to you whether you
that
wanna
was kind of
consider
what
it.
my conclusion was that, no.
You know, the thing is we need to read it to make sure there's nothing that's a Trojan horse in there.
Yeah.
that
This one's
affects us.
this one's only 8 pages as opposed to the hundreds of unreadable, and it's mostly black on white.
Where can we, does this include the detailed? Does this website
Hmm.
here include the appendix for the individual ADA?
No, but if you want to see the individual ADA breakdowns, I will give you access to a network file folder that will have those. But those are not made public facing at this time.
I would like to look at that because I'd like to compare what they
Sure.
are using to the standards that Forest Service has.
Sure.
Yeah,
EDA audits to Cal. I'll put them in a
Yeah.
folder and send out.
And
a
do
link.
we have the link for getting to the PNR master plan draft?
That's right here.
Well, do we have this link?
Yes, so on the agenda, documents for discussion can be found at.
Right there.
Right here.
Yeah.
So he got.
Yep.
So that's everything you were pulling up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, so everything I'm pulling up is in that folder, and there's all 108 pages.
Lots and lots of pretty pictures.
yeah. Some of them are even from town.
Yeah, and then there's some that absolutely are not from town. I looked at a couple of them and I went, I've been in all the parking lots, and that is not one of them.
There's one with group of kayaks, I assume at River Park, and
Yes.
Mayor Moran did point out that it
She's
was
in
her in the orange
She's in
boat.
it. That was our dedication of River Park.
Yeah,
And they did mention River Park in their presentation yesterday about making it an accessible kayak launch.
We,
We'll never get
we need to fix that.
2.8%.
no,
Right.
but it's probably not possible to get 2.8% unless we do some sort of weird bank cut switchback starting from higher and move the parking lot elevation, but I'm not an engineer. I'll let Derek pull his hair out about that. No, I mean, frankly, in terms of accessibility, right, for accessible boat launch by strict ADA standards versus making the boat launch more accessible, which is much more reasonable, we first need to eliminate the massive scour that's on that boat launch right now that got ripped out this winter. That we can do.
yeah,
That is-
I've seen better portage trails between lakes.
That's on my list.
You know. I said, no,
Okay, so I still have another question about how we're gonna proceed here. Comments to you or whomever by July 11th.
Mhm.
The council gets those comments. And then what do they do?
So much in the same way that when we, now. I'm not gonna speculate. I don't know. The council is a political body. Hypothetically, the council will be voting whether or not to adopt this plan as a guiding document at some point. I don't know if on their July meeting, in which this will be on the agenda, they will be moving to a vote to adopt. And it's just a strict up or down, or if there is going to be a, thank you for the plan, we've received all this work. Based on these comments, we want to form a subcommittee to work on figuring out what our next steps are. I don't know. Hypothetically, they could take any of those actions. I don't think they're bound to take.
Or
a
they-
strict
or
up or
they
down.
could-
Are they obligated to have a public hearing on this before they adopt it?
I believe they are obligated to have a public hearing on it, much in the same way we had a public hearing for the bike ped master plan, which was like a lot less controversial. I can't imagine that there would not be a public hearing on this. And I think that July meeting would be the public hearing. Which is why we're asking for your
So,
comments back
right.
ahead of time, so that way we have all your comments back, we can compile them, make them available to the public, people can read them. And then they can come in with comments in support of things or asking questions.
Yeah,
But I do believe there must be a public hearing on this, yes.
Okay,
yeah,
okay, so they have the public hearing. We have input, who knows who else has input? And then the plan is revised based on.
Maybe.
or they could
Or do
adopt
you-
both the plan and our comments and other comments as supplements to it.
I,
I
That,
think the thing is
that's a really hard, that would be a really hard situation to work from for planning.
Anybody
but-
knows.
It may be
Yeah.
depending on what their contract is with 110%.
that contract does not live in my department. And
Yeah.
I am not at the level of organizational hierarchy that I would be privy to the dollar values left in said contract or what necessarily the various addenda and terms of that contract say. I haven't, that lives in Jay's department. I'm sure he would let me see it if I wanted to, I just haven't, so.
Okay, well, so maybe that's something that ultimately we can weigh in on in terms of this, our recommendation, saying, okay, we recommend that this goes back to the drawing board.
Well,
Or
or is.
is scrapped to move forward,
I don't know. if
or
I wanna say
that-
it's Scrap.
right,
But that, the revisions are taken
Yes.
into account and it is revised.
exactly. That was my
Yeah.
next door, so.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm saying that we can make one of those and then they're gonna do what they're gonna do.
Yeah,
Exactly.
because such things as
I think we need to make that recommendation.
whatever we come up with a
Front and
classification,
foremost in
Yes.
what's
Yeah.
our document.
whatever we come up for a classification document for the town open space and preserve stuff could be just spliced right in and the other one just disappear.
But to some extent, that speaks to the poor resolution of the document. If you can just take something that's seminal, put it right in, and it doesn't impact the rest of the text and everything. I mean, this was supposed to be tailored. So in theory, if we are changing something like that, it should have ramifications for the
Yeah,
rest of the
yeah,
text.
but the subtle,
I can
there's some subtle phrasings that would have to
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
And I can think of areas of the text that would have to be entirely
Yeah.
rewritten.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
May I share, and this might be a good time. Charlotte proposes basically two tables. One for developed recreation, which would list the amenities or sports supported. And then one for natural areas, which would indicate what types of trails, what types of traffic on the trails are suitable. Whether there's fishing, cross-country skiing, what the parking is, what the size is. I don't know to whom she said that, but.
Yeah.
Jim
I think we all got it.
She sent it to everyone.
Yep.
Yeah,
But it seems like a good place to start.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And much better than, well, it's only 2 acres, so it must be a neighborhood park.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, yes, let's not get into that.
Yeah,
Yes.
they seem to be using some standard that apply to cities. I could not find the original standard.
I was gonna suggest dividing by use so that we had
Yes.
nature recreation area, athletic recreation area, arts recreation area, and then a category for combined use where you could specify
Yeah.
each of those it fell
And
into.
would you send that to Ken?
I did.
Thank you.
So I have,
Yeah.
not in this, actually, I have 5
Yeah.
labels. I have nature recreation area, athletic recreation area, arts recreation area, combined use, which could be any combination of those two, and we could specify which it was in that notation. And then preserves, which are areas not open to the public. And that's what I suggested. The main reason that I would argue for that is because I think if we divide things up by their function, it is going to be more practical for managing those areas and coming up
Yeah.
with management plans.
Yeah.
So
I
an
mean,
athletic, right, so managing, for example, the athletic fields, the Lions Park and stuff is different from managing the community school grounds.
Or the
Yeah.
back of that property, that, there's a little bit of the Lions property and then Dorwat.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I think one of the things we're gonna wind up with is,
And I
depending
did
on
say that.
how you slice and dice it, we're gonna wind up with, a lot of our parcels in 2 categories.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah,
And one of the
Fine.
things is there's no access. And then there's the no access described in the plan.
Yeah,
Well,
Uh,
and that's what I mean. Things like that need to be fixed.
But I think there are true no access
Oh,
areas.
and,
like
and
Porter
they
Meadow.
didn't
Yeah.
well, so to
mention,
me, that's a
they
preserve.
didn't mention
Yeah.
Porter Meadow, which is no public
right,
access.
Right.
And I-
Yeah.
You know, it's like.
But the other thing is there are several places, there are a lot of hayfields
yeah.
Yes.
and,
Yeah, the ag.
The ag,
And
the
also-
ag thing is
Oh,
very.
and also the
Oh,
ag,
Mount
the ag
Hope
part
Park,
of,
the stay out of the field sign has been torn down.
Cool.
Thank you for reminding me.
No, it seems so basically what happened with those is what was no parking was labeled as no access, and what was no access was left off in order to not alert people that
Yeah.
it was there, so they wouldn't go access it.
Yeah.
This
So,
is a plan, Michael.
Yeah,
We don't act as if something doesn't exist in a plan.
perhaps we shouldn't, but I'm sure we do, we being the collective of society.
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I think that starting from when I first got on the committee, we looked at the properties as the rec department, which were the ones that had actual recreation facilities. The ag committee, which were basically the agricultural fields, and essentially everything else was parks. And at that time, it all made perfectly fine sense
Yeah.
to me. You know, if there was recreation stuff, it was a recreation park.
Yeah,
And if it had fields that was agricultural, that made perfect fine sense.
well, I wonder,
Some of us,
I don't think we have to make, what I'm saying is, I don't think we have to make it any more complicated than that.
yeah,
I
oh,
mean,
no.
we know what they're used for.
Using
Oh,
them-
but we need to remind people that there are some areas that you don't go in the hayfield.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
I guess my attitude, one of the things I just came up with as an idea was did we make more of a capital investment than just making a place to park and blazing a trail?
And do we need to continue
And does
to
that,
make operational investment in those
in those,
properties?
and if you have a
Which is
capital investment, you have a
Which
maintenance.
is a distinction
Yeah.
that is not made
Right.
in this plan.
Yeah.
There really needs to be a distinction between the operational costs for something like, I don't know, Coney Rock versus a softball field.
Yeah,
That
Oh, we'll
is-
bill Ashford for those.
There is not in there.
Yeah,
And I think it's very important, not, I mean, we know that, but the council needs to understand that, the public needs to understand.
And that's a reason to call it out as not as parks, but as natural areas.
Yes,
As opposed to developed recreation.
yeah,
with different operational expense.
yeah.
And I just, because they just blurred, they
Yeah,
really
yeah.
blurred it, it's like, it's all expensive, you know?
yeah,
And it's not, it isn't. And it's not that I'm trying to say, well, you know, this is somehow on a higher plane or something because there aren't operations. It's like you're looking clearly at what the town is spending money on. And it's like, to me, this is almost an educational document that, you know, helps people understand the different types of properties that the town owns and what their uses are, what the expenses are, what the long-term plan is for each one. You know, I just, to me, this, I view this as an opportunity to be clear ourselves
Mhm.
and to educate others so they are clear about this. Especially the council, because they have such a variety of things they have to be on top of. I think it's our job to
Yeah,
make it
yeah,
easy
for an
for them
advisory
to
committee to
understand
them.
Yeah,
what's
Yeah.
going on with
You know,
parks.
and, yeah, that's, you know, and that's the thing, that's where categorizing the properties or sub-properties, you know, and the other little category that floats around there is auxiliary school fields. You know, that kind of overlaps the,
Right.
Spring Hill Fields and and Southeast Park.
Right. And I think that's another defect in this uh, plans analysis of the recreational opportunities,
Yeah,
is they don't include anything at the schools. There are playgrounds at the schools, there are basketball courts at the schools, there are tennis courts at the middle school. They say we only have one tennis court in town. Well, it's bullshit. There are courts at the high school, there's courts at the middle school.
And there are courts.
I would imagine it's similar with basketball, which they also had very low.
I mean, they're not giving the town, it's still the town's tax money.
yeah,
It
Yeah.
just goes under a different flavor when it's spent. But it's spent for recreational purposes.
which brings me to the staffing. It sounded like they wanted dedicated park staff. And it strikes me is there's not enough work in, you know, in the parks, trail work to keep somebody busy. It's, but we do have a very skilled, you know, tree warden and crew.
I think they want the accounting to be simpler.
Yes.
Well, that's a cost accounting issue from the finance department.
And that's a place where synergy and partnerships between town departments would be a positive thing that they could accomplish instead of hiring people at the Parks Department.
Yeah, yeah. Travelers made us keep track of were we doing maintenance, routine stuff to keep things running, or were we improving the system, i.e. capital investment? Because the capital investment went to capital dollars and hence worked with your profitability with the 64 states. How much money you were allowed to make. Yeah. Guam is its own insurance, as is Cuba. If you're a defense contractor and have somebody at Guantanamo Bay, you don't want them under Cuban.
No.
But I think that is an important point which has not been made in
Yeah.
this room,
Yeah.
is that maintenance or operations for parks is on an as needed basis.
Yeah.
And isn't a whole lot, right, Michael?
In general, no, it requires you to go out with some blazes and nails and hand saw, and except for a big down tree, that's all you need to make the
Yeah.
trail walkable.
But I'm
Yeah.
talking about in terms of staff time.
I
works
am
time.
anticipating that we are going to, by the end of June, have walked every trail and have begun to set up times to clear the bigger stuff that
Mhm.
has fallen out of them.
Yeah,
And everything will be reblazed by the end of June, at which point I'm probably gonna start in on a lot more aquatics and water trail stuff.
Mhm.
It doesn't require a lot. It,
no,
after a big storm, you'll probably need a little bit, but you need a little bit after any big storm. I'd love to have someone who was able to be our trails warden, and we could have a full-time staff member as trails warden. I don't think there's enough work in Mansfield. Maybe if we shared that person with 5 other towns, right? And they
Yeah.
just revolved in the area, there would be enough to walk all the trails on a regular basis and keep everything blazed. But just in Mansfield, I don't think so.
I wonder if that's an opportunity
For a partnership,
for a partnership with JT.
quite possibly, but there's a whole other.
yeah,
So, but my point is that the parks that we're concerned with only have maintenance on an as needed basis.
yeah,
Whereas a softball field, there is regular maintenance. It has to be mowed once a week during the growing season. And who knows what else, so that people can play baseball there.
Yep.
But does it need to be mowed by special parks employees or is it just town maintenance staff?
Right, but I'm just, I mean, I'm talking about our bailiwick.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that distinction is not made. It almost, I mean, there was something in there about over 700 acres needing maintenance. And I'm like, yeah, we have 700 acres of softball fields. I don't think so.
no,
So to me, there needs to be a clear distinction there between the different types of facilities and their need for.
So how are we gonna divvy up approaching this? moving forward?
yeah,
Oh, what?
How-
Gonna divvy up approaching
Yeah.
it and moving
Right.
forward.
yeah,
I'm gonna take Michael's stuff and the notes I've made tonight. And I tried to reread part.
Yeah, I just sent you an updated copy of mine,
Miranda's-
because my first one had, I arranged, I fixed a few things, my first copy. So you have 2 copies.
And any other people's
I
input.
have stuff.
yeah.
Um,
And
and try to pull together a revised, updated text. Can you send, yours is Word, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Do you want it in PDF or?
No, Word is,
Yeah.
I have Word.
Yeah.
If it was in PDF, I'd be asking for it. in
Yeah,
Word.
that's understandable. Sometimes I put things in a Word and then people say, I have a Mac, I need it in PDF, so I can never remember how I've saved it.
Put it in
So,
Word.
so Ken, you're gonna draft some text. And then we can react to it
Yeah,
Yeah,
in by email, or we get back together.
Yeah, so the big thing is you each individually send Ken comments. Ken, a secretary,
Okay.
you send those to me. I, as staff, will send out a blast to all of you of Ken has pulled together a set of comprehensive comments from this. Would we like to wait until we have those in hand to try to set up maybe a working group meeting or two?
yeah. With some time, once we get them, give us a couple of days to read it. And
It's,
then maybe get back together.
it is.
Anytime
11:30.
within normal hours, I come with a 2.5-year-old assistant.
That sounds fun.
First
Handle
meeting.
that.
Oh, it sounds fun.
Actually more as of next week.
Right.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That just,
But the
Yes.
older one can read, so there's that.
one of the,
Oh, good. We-
My-
yeah, we're
just some light
gonna
reading,
do-
some reading comprehension.
Do our proofreading.
Right.
That's fine. Um,
Okay, so Michael, you're going to send us Ken's compilation.
so Ken, if you know, normally minutes are due within a week of the meeting. Okay, do you think that you could have the compiled comments together within a week at the same time you have the minutes together? Because I can then send them out by
the
next.
minutes are gonna be really short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
fair. things were discussed. Um,
I don't think I have the energy to deal with, management plans tonight.
that's-
No.
All right,
Yeah.
so, but I we need to be clear about what we're doing here before we leave. So, Michael, you're going to send out
Ken's compilation.
Ken's compilation, all of that.
Yes,
We're gonna read it
yep.
and we're going to respond in a meeting.
Yep.
Or by email or.
So what we should do is I will attach to that a poll, a when to meet, for a couple days after I get those, for what are times that work for people. We can do it via Zoom, so that way those who happen to have various assistants of various ages.
Much less distracting for everybody if I'm on Zoom.
Yes, with a mute button.
Right, well, do you want to do hybrid or everybody on Zoom? I think we don't do everybody on Zoom.
I like hybrid, and if it's during work hours, I'm here, so that's fine by me, and I'm happy to book a room. We have 3 in the building.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Okay.
But yes, we will have it hybrid and we can do that.
Okay.
Um.
Okay, good.
I should be able to get something out by the middle of next week,
Okay,
assuming I get the input sooner rather than later.
okay. And Charlotte has started working on this classification, which to me is a whole separate project from the text. And I'm thinking, we'll just ask Charlotte to pull all this together and we'll talk about
Yeah.
it. And you can
Well, I've
send
got
it
what-
to you and then you can send it
Yeah,
out.
I'll attach that.
I sent you a quick description of what I suggested. It can be sent to Charlotte or not,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
So
Oh, definitely.
looking at, just thinking
Yeah,
about.
Charlotte and I
turnaround
spent
times.
some time talking on the phone this afternoon.
So
Actually, it was this morning, yeah.
I'm thinking about turnaround times on those items, and giving Ken time to write everything up and compile things, Charlotte time to write things, have them both send it to me, send them to you, have everybody else read them, and then coming back for a meeting. That doesn't sound like next week. So that to me sounds like the following week, the week of 6/24.
I have my sister visiting that week. But I can probably break away.
Which week are we talking about?
The 24th, Monday, the 24th, that week.
I will have some internet contact, but I may be up in the
Good for you.
Because otherwise we can push to the following week, but then we would be coming back the week after
I will
for a
still
regular
be up in
meeting.
the Adirondacks, but I will have internet
yeah,
contact.
okay.
so I
Yeah,
won't-
tell someplace sometime in August.
Up and down, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's gonna,
Good for you.
the schedule isn't
Um,
planned.
So, in that case, let's tentatively aim for the week of 6/24 to come back
Okay.
together for a working meeting on finalizing the comments for this.
Earlier in the week, more likely you'll be here.
Okay.
The
And our
24th and
comments
25th.
are going to include text, which are written comments, and also a proposed classification table.
That seems
Yeah, I mean,
based
to me,
on,
those are the two things that we're
yeah,
trying to
yeah,
create at this
yeah,
point.
yeah.
I think so.
in many ways, I think a lot of the comments can be phrased as a lot of these comments are, a lot of this plan is thinking about recreation in active recreation areas, not
And
everything
yes.
else. So,
And that reminds me, I think the comments, because they're gonna be long.
oh yeah,
I'm sorry, they're gonna be long.
they're gonna be
Yeah.
long.
And anyone in the council is gonna sort of blanch, I think. So I'm thinking it would be good to have like an executive summary at the beginning for them. And also like a little table of contents. For example, general comments, specific comments about specific items, and then a proposed classification. So they know upfront what the pieces are.
That's stuff I can easily do. I can throw
Yeah.
together an abstract and have it out to you for, once
Yeah.
I have that initial round of comments, I can put together an abstract, send it out. Like for anyone to have it,
But
that's
I'm
easy enough for me to
thinking of a
synthesize.
Table of contents.
And I can
They
do that as
Sort of know, there's an abstract, there are comments on the text. There's a proposed classification, just so they don't see, which I'm sure it's gonna be 10 pages, maybe more.
Yeah,
So they sort of know what they're getting into.
And I think the point is to make it very clear up front that our comments essentially say that the plan really is focused on active recreation areas. And our committee's charge is primarily on
Yeah.
other types of properties that the town owns that we feel are not well served by this plan.
And would really be reticent to apply some of the recommendations and extrapolate them to the area that you.
I would
mentioned.
also include some wording where you say something like, we recommend it be
Yes.
heavily revised with
Yes.
the following comments in mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, one other thing that I think is we need to agree on some basic definitions and terms.
Mhm.
Because when I was first, and I don't want to harp back to that, but we used to call anything that had sports fields and everything active recreation areas. And anything that had trails, passive recreation areas. And everybody understood what those words meant. And we didn't have to explain it every time we said, well, our athletic field areas. So maybe what we need to do is to get some nice terms and define them so that we can use them throughout and not have to keep redefining them.
Right, but I still like the idea of, natural areas versus recreation areas. But we could talk about natural areas having passive recreation.
yeah.
As opposed to ones that you can't.
Well, we want
go
to
on,
split
yeah.
our natural areas into having passive recreation
Or
and,
non-accessible.
and not public access
Yeah,
for ecological or sanitary reasons,
yeah,
you know,
but maybe, I think it's really important to
Yeah.
define
yeah,
some terms that we can then use over and
Well,
over.
I like the concept of natural area or preservation area, because that ties into the conservation half of
Right,
the plan of conservation and development,
yeah,
whereas the active recreation and Charlotte used developed, I think active
Yeah.
may be better.
yeah,
yeah,
That talks to the development part of the
Yeah.
plan of conservation and development.
yeah. And the other thing that we'd want to include in there is the comment about, acquisition things. We should point out that that's scheduled to be reviewed in the revised plan of conservation and development. That's something that we're planning to do. I guess the requests for proposals have sort of gone out, but we're in the early stages.
We're in the early stages. I believe that we're doing an RFQ to
Yeah.
help build the proposal with.
Yeah, Jennifer explained
one-
that
the one
last night
thing-
to the council,
the
or
one
maybe it
thing-
was Brian.
We're all saying the same thing.
So,
And I feel that there's not enough reference to the town plan in this document. And
Yeah.
we have the town plan to guide us,
yeah,
and this master plan needs to acknowledge its underlying town plan and the provisions in that plan that are relevant to the parks. It just isn't there. It's as if the town plan doesn't exist.
yeah,
And I'm like, wait a minute. I think the town plan trumps this master plan. So,
that's what state
yeah,
law
I think
says.
so, yeah.
yeah, so I just feel there needs to be more
You know.
acknowledgement and reference.
When we acquire a piece of property, the Planning and Zoning Commission has to certify that it's not in violation.
Well, and there,
Town plan.
they have the absence of fiscal policies relating to financial management commitments, practices and decision-making for parks and recreation, financial sustainability, cost recovery, capital investment, parkland acquisition, development, divestment.
Yes, we've mentioned that
Yes.
this committee wants to make sure that divestment is not happening on our preserved lands, which cost us nothing in maintenance and are important as core forests, yes.
Most of which we received grants for.
And
we could
can't
not-
divest even if we
could
wanted
divest
to.
even
Yeah.
if we wanted.
You're stuck with it. Yes.
I was really quite proud of the amount of land in there that it shows that Mansfield has compared to other.
Oh, yeah.
Yep,
And since it
we're a little
doesn't even
land
count,
trust in addition to a town.
since it doesn't even count JT,
That's right.
Yeah,
The whole open space layer is very impressive for Mansfield.
yeah. Yeah, there was a time when we were a leader and people were looking to us for how to do it. And I've realized that we've lost that position, which is a good thing, because other towns are following suit, you know. It's, you know,
So do we have a plan for that?
I think I'm comfortable now. I have
Yeah.
a sense of what we're doing, where it's going once we've done our thing.
Everything to Ken and Charlotte, Ken and Charlotte to me to you with meeting time, you meeting time, make comments. I abstract back to you, we put abstract comments and final plan together and send to council by deadline.
My comments just went in reply to Charlotte's, but they probably went to everybody.
That's fine, now we have them,
yes,
We have,
Yeah.
yeah.
great.
good, thank you.
Okay.
Next is your.
We can
Table it.
table management plan updates for the
We have a
day.
July meeting.
Did I have it?
If
Oh, you do?
One little one, it's
So
tiny.
the management plan template that I put together, just we won't even necessarily discuss it. I put it on all the ones that desperately need to be updated, which are the ones from 2005 and before. I put this together, basically, I started with the Joshua's Trust way that they had this organized. And then I eliminated in general their property specific management goals and I broke it down by our POCD goals. So again, this is the template. Not every single one of these would be in each plan. We delete out from here.
was what I sent you helpful on.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
And very, very much so. So this is primarily a synthesis of your work on there, and I tried to break down where it would make sense for in this text here, guiding you if you're in a sensitive aquifer area based on your notes. This makes sense in this area, so we would need this in this place. I tried to consolidate where it made sense to consolidate. But that's the general plan. I also in management activities that seem like they show up everywhere on all three of the conjoining plans, I put together a standard list of management actions with guesses at frequency. That was the general. And then I just figured we would discuss the rest of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I when thoughts are flashing through there and after talk about revising, we should probably say POCD and the, what, 2013 was it when we did
50.
15?
Yeah.
You know, because we're referring to
They'll be
Pacific goal
revised.
and that, as it gets revised, has,
So smart.
the goals have been the same, but they're, you know, basically the same, but they end up with different numbers.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll look at that, see if I have any further input.
Absolutely.
The one thing I thought we need to do, and we do an initial management plan for a parcel, is we need teased out separately okay, we got this land, there are a couple of things we need to do to jumpstart it. And then there's the long term.
Sort
Yeah.
of
And
setting it up.
yeah, the setting it up almost needs to be a separate appendix rather than embedded in the main plan.
Post-acquisition startup.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, some of that is boilerplate.
My only thought was that under ongoing land management, one of the things I would put in there almost as a standing thing is flood mitigation, especially with the increased rainfall we are currently getting and expecting with climate change, just upward
Yeah,
of there. It's just, I think it's gonna be so pervasive right in
Yeah.
there that you're gonna want flood mitigation.
Flood
And
or,
down trees was the other thing, but just flood mitigation was with any of the
I
trails.
wanna generalize it to storm mitigation,
Yeah,
because that covers washouts.
Yeah.
And
trees,
down
yeah.
trees.
to me, that's gonna be ongoing management with the
Yeah.
storms frequency that we are
Yeah.
expecting in the future. I would just put
Good
that as a
point.
standing item.
Stewart, that in there.
Yeah,
Post
you-
acquisition
You,
started.
you got me thinking about, do we need a phrase in there for, you know, what's happening to our forests, the quantity of dead trees we're having?
Has anyone seen the beach trees this year?
Yes.
Yeah, they got something funky
Oh,
going on.
it's
Uh,
beach
be-
leaf disease.
yeah.
It's this thing, but man, it hit them all. You walk up and down those trails and it's every single one
Yeah,
of those
yeah,
understory
yeah.
beaches. Of course, the only beach trees you have left. And it's all the way, out. It's in the Adirondacks too. It's all the way
Yeah.
down to our peninsula. It's
Yeah.
down near road.
Yeah, it's a nematode.
Yeah, like they
They-
came from Japan, I think.
Yeah, that overwinters in the bud.
Yeah.
We're not
but
gonna
I
have
mean,
any trees left.
as if the beach trees hadn't been hit enough, now this affects it's just, oh my God, they got them all.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
The forest of
Holy
red
cell
maple and
pines.
blackbird.
Three years ago, Charlotte and I were off trail in Schoolhouse Brook Park, and I had been alerted to it, and I spotted one or two leaves.
It's every single one in Schoolhouse Brook
Yeah,
Park. I was
I'm-
just
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
single
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Wait till the spotted landfly gets here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I learned
Like-
about, I don't remember the name of it, but somebody, I was at
It's really.
a seminar on jumping worms.
Oh, I
Yeah.
saw something. Where did I see that?
It was a good,
Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah.
For
Um,
example, we have a widowmaker on the trail near my house right now, and I've kind of diverted the trail around.
Davis
it,
Trail?
so, Yeah.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah. Rick Coles from experiments, the ag experiment station has done some real nice work on that.
but there's a invasive tree that's in Mansfield.
Yeah.
Which one?
I don't remember the name. But it looks like a sycamore tree, but it has thorns on its trunk.
Oh, yay.
Great.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Hey.
And I've been told it's
with
present.
thorns.
C2.
There's a thing called
The
devil.
name starts with a C.
There's a thing called.
AI is gonna answer. It's not black locust?
No,
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 okay. Buckthorn?
no.
That
there's-
is an invasive tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been around for quite a while.
Yeah, but-
I mean, I'm just reading what's.
But you have a southern one called Devil's Club, which may be moving north with climate change.
And that
Yeah.
has thorns on it.
Yes.
Nasty thorns.
All the thorny things. Won't that be fun? That was like being in,
Well, the deer won't eat them.
yeah.
The person who told me about it said that they had put it on they had let Sipwick know that it was present. Charlotte's not here tonight to ask.
Fine.
I did 2 weeks in St. John of the Virgin Islands. And
Japanese
everything there
angelica
I mean,
trees?
trunk spines and branch spines and everything. We went through 4 gigantic boxes of Band-Aids in 2 weeks.
Yes.
That's what happens when all the trees in your forest have spines.
Japanese angelica tree,
Well, that sounds delightful.
That's been mentioned in a couple of things that I've come.
perhaps. It might
Does it
be.
look like a sycamore?
It's really
Ish.
unique that Japan has a climate so similar to the
Yes.
Picture.
northeast
No.
coast.
No, no, the
Well,
name had a
Japan is
C.
long
It
and
started with
skinny,
a C.
so it matches
Okay.
lots of climates.
Yeah, but it's one of those interesting things that it maps so closely because of the temperature moderation.
yeah.
of the,
Yeah.
coastal-
So Michael, what else shall we do about management?
We can just, we are hoping that we can present the
Castor
planned housing
Aurelia.
development district tonight. I'd like to give a brief
That
presentation.
looks
Yeah.
more like.
That is,
Yeah.
that is a bit
Perfectly
more time
Castor
sensitive than
Aurelia
management
tree.
plans. I can take your comments here and incorporate
Pull
them.
up a picture.
Yeah, I'll try.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the multifamily
Yes,
project? Oh, okay.
so,
But that is going to be tomorrow night, right? Jennifer's doing a presentation
Yep.
tomorrow night.
so that, well, no, that's sustainable CT.
Well,
No,
then,
but
then she's
then
gonna go
she's
into a
going-
presentation after that.
Right.
She has half an hour at the end of that session.
So we don't have to cover that, but I can answer questions if people have them already, because I provided that.
Yeah, I
documentation.
told Jennifer she didn't have to come if she thought you could provide the information to us.
And isn't
But
it
we had,
great
a-
that she
we,
has
we,
that
we, we had a,
confidence?
we had a conference in Starbucks
Okay,
Sunday.
Issues, I've read them. We had a lot of reading.
there was a lot of
Yeah,
reading.
there was a lot
of-
We apologize. We have to justify our existence somehow, so we can produce a large amount of writing.
I did not see anything that was relevant to our committee.
No,
Yeah,
relevant to our living in Mansfield, but not relevant to our
Yeah,
committee.
So in general, the regulations don't change anything about what's going to be required in subdivisions. They don't change anything about our requests for open space preservation. All of that stays exactly the
Yeah.
same. It just kind of shuffles around the order in which you start discussing certain topics to eliminate the wheat from the chaff or separate the wheat from the chaff. Get those projects that have elements you really don't like out of the way quickly and reform them into something you could like. It's faster for us, it's less paperwork, it gives us stuff we like, it's cheaper for the developer, everyone hypothetically wins.
Yeah, because that's one of the reasons we started doing the non-commitment pre-review.
Well, and
Review.
the thing is that these regulations still make it an optional additional review.
Yeah.
Where's the process part?
Classifications, architectural site design.
There's pre-application staff review
Mhm.
on an informal basis. And then there's conceptual development review, while not required.
Yeah.
The purpose of the conceptual development review is for potential applicants to present a conceptual development plan. I would like to see stronger language that brought in our committee's advice at that point.
Yeah, at one time, what would happen is in that conceptual review. Open space, parks,
Mhm.
Basin Commission would all meet with the developer at with, this is not binding, et cetera, but this is pulling. I figured out one trip that, and a couple of those sessions, the developer was getting about $15,000 an hour consulting free.
It really does help. It
Yeah.
does- I mean, and the developers appreciate it because
Yeah.
they don't spend money on expensive engineer drawn plans just to have PZC ask them to change it.
Yeah.
So that's my feedback is it
Yeah.
needs to not just be the commission, but all of the advisory.
Well, it may, I would say it may be referred. I don't know that it needs to be required to be referred, but I mean, I don't know. It's up to you guys. If you
I think
wanna-
our intended way of doing it is to kick it to you when there are open space preservations.
Yeah.
The way we normally do, but of
Right.
course, that's one of those things where the way we run the department now, if it's not in the books and all of us get hit by a bus tomorrow, the
Yeah.
people who replace us may run the department differently.
Yeah.
And then if it's not in the book,
Mm.
Yeah,
And the other thing is if it's not in the book, somebody could say you inappropriately referred it.
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It gives us leg to stand on to say, yeah, our comments may have weight.
yeah. To do a referral, with the proposal to a list of committees, including like maybe Bike Mansfield and stuff, we may choose not to respond, but you're covered. It was sent to, that would cover you in court, that it would, just automatically send it out.
The other comments I had was that there's no specific call out for an ongoing obligation to maintain and repair any amenities that are associated with the open space and recreation. We don't want to get into a position where, oh, we can't pay for it, we're gonna just rip it out,
Yeah,
which has happened.
I believe that obligation exists in another section of the zoning regulations. I believe that's a performance standard with regards to.
Well,
I'll
it
validate.
might, but I was
Yeah.
just reading this section.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll validate that because that's a good point. Gotta make sure that's in
And,
there.
and then while the intent, expressed intent is that you're gonna approve this master development plan. And it's gonna save them on engineering before they get into the nitty gritty.
Mhm.
That just goes through a review and not a public hearing. I don't see that they're gonna be able to save that much on site work and site planning in the way the process is lined out, because it says an engineer has to certify that it's good to go. An engineer's gonna need all that damn detail of the site plan.
So the nice thing about this is, and the way so again, the point of these is not to save the developer money. The point of this is to get us the designs we want and to not have to fight developers kicking and screaming in court who claim that we're doing contract zoning by this, which we're not, but you can claim it and then waste everybody's time and money. The reason it will likely save developers money is because you're only going to need to go to your engineer for the full drawings once you've already had the groundwork discussions. Because the way it normally works now is you don't even get to have a discussion before the commission, before you've got to come in with everything, and you have to go to wetlands first. So you have to come in with your stormwater system as your first hurdle. I'm principally the wetlands agent. I'm most concerned with the stormwater and environmental stuff for a site.
yeah,
But if it's gonna die in planning and zoning because they don't like the way your roofs look, it sounds pretty stupid to start with a discussion of the stormwater. So the goal being, you don't have to go back and revise, right? What happened with the golf course. The golf course property went through a bunch of rounds of architectural revisions.
Yeah.
Every time you do that, you're paying people more money. If you can get the themes down early, you'll at least save that. I think there is something to be said there. Now, of course, it's really not our problem. And I'm not an accountant, so I don't know how much money we will save, but that's the theory anyway.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't do your stormwater until you know pretty close to where your buildings are gonna be.
Right. No big,
But it would make sense.
Yeah.
funny that, right? But I will make sure that specific call out for ongoing obligation exists in the regs. If not, I'll make sure that's in there. And then, yeah, I will revisit that conceptual development language with, the consultant who we have write these.
Okay.
Any other comments for you to, Ray?
Okay, the other thing that I saw as important is, the report of our walk.
And we probably ought to do that in executive
Yeah.
session.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that the property name was
Yes,
mentioned.
that was my mistake. I do apologize. I should have been thinking about that, but I wasn't. And that's why we have executive session. So, that is a mea culpa. And I will try to scrub that as much as possible, from, visibility, for our purposes. So,
Okay,
I think we need a motion to suspend the rules to go into executive session.
yeah, we motion to go into executive
I
session.
move we go into executive session.
Second.
Who seconded?
So
Uh,
we're going to.
At 8:35.
Oh, 36, so it looks like we really paid attention.
So what we're gonna do is we're going to turn off video, then. Video on. Recording in progress.
Okay.
We are out of executive session for the chair at 9:21.
Yeah. Okay, and we have no recommendations to make from executive session. So and we agreed to table management plans. So I think we're through
We
the
got
items
enough
on
stuff to
it.
talk about.
think we're up through the items on our
In
agenda.
July, we're also talking about the water company and Porter Meadow.
Yes, yes, so
We don't
that.
have to talk about it right now.
Yeah, it's
It's
on my desk. I have all the old files for Porter Meadow on the table, but yes, we had received that request from the water company. They are very interested in Porter Meadow. In some way, shape, or form, if ranging from purchasing to seem permanently protected. So there's a lot of interest there in protecting the reservoir, so they want to meet.
So we can talk about that in July.
Yes.
No, probably be. Okay, so do we even,
Just quickly.
yeah, reports from
Poor
members.
Merrill Meadow
From Merrill.
got mowed again.
How many times do I have to say for real to get to the guys?
Could we, do you think it would be a good idea if we were to put up some sort of fence? Or even stakes or something so that they can't mow it? Because now it's far enough into the year, all the plants were like 3 or 4 feet tall. And they went all down again.
Is it possible, Michael, that it's a communication issue
Probably.
with, you're telling them to mow one mower width and they have a very big mower?
You can see,
One side is done.
that you can see where it's supposed to be mowed, it's lawn grass. And the rest is meadow, tall weeds. I mean, there shouldn't have been any question as to where they're supposed to mow.
But
But
if,
this is 4 years in a row that they've gone and mowed 15, 20 feet back from the.
That's more
from the
than
fence.
one spot.
Oh, yeah.
More than
Oh,
one mower.
definitely.
Unless
Oh, yeah.
it's a policy, everyone is just nodding their head at me about and then just doing it. I don't know where the communication is broken.
I'm wondering, should I write up, because first of all, it's a pollinator pathway property.
Yes, I would, if you would write up,
And
Yeah.
it's got milkweed. They mowed a whole bunch of milkweed down,
Yeah.
along with
Yes.
other, all the Joe Pye weed and all the sunflowers and all the pollinator plants.
maybe a couple of, a bundle of T-posts and a slab bar. Put them every 20 feet at the width you want.
Yeah,
No,
Yeah.
you haven't mowed the entire thing.
No,
Yeah,
but
just
the,
very
the
deeply
whole
up
idea,
into-
well, the other part of it would be the whole idea of having a
You can't
handicap
See it.
trail is that you want to be able to have the handicap people going through the field and being able to see the field
access
plants.
to the resource.
And they
Yeah.
could
But
have
they,
seen so many
you know-
flowers, so many plants.
yeah.
Yeah,
So, so because they're mowing wider, we have to make the path wider to make it
there we
accessible.
go. Make a
Okay.
But then that wouldn't
15
have
foot.
room to mow.
Okay, I'm thinking if you were to write something up and then we endorse it in July and try to get buy-in from sustainability, as many groups in town, on the,
Yeah,
that this is how this property should be managed. Cause.
Yeah,
Jeannie
I'll put
Walton is
something
on,
together.
the
Is it this
pollinator.
time every year that they do it too?
they do it 4 or 5 times. They've already done it
still
once.
Seems like we need to send a regular reminder to them, not even just once a year, but
Well,
maybe
but
like, I know he's doing.
Yeah.
I see
I'm
Will,
not.
I talk to Will and be like, it was mowed too wide, and he says, I know, and I go. So you know it's
Like
mowed too
every
wide,
2
so
weeks.
presumably you're about to tell your guys, stop doing that, and then.
You have an
So,
email every 2
yeah,
weeks, goes
so-
out and say, by the way, did you do that 2 weeks later? By the way.
Oh, she's setting up a robot to
Yeah,
send
yeah.
emails.
Or my other thought was, I think the reason that it was the width that it was is they used to mow it with a lawnmower. Maybe we should tell them, go back to the lawnmower,
you-
because
you-
it was literally like,
Use
Yeah, why?
use your 20-inch walker.
yeah.
Yeah, and if that's on the work order.
Maybe it's just
That-
changing equipment so that they have to pay
And
attention.
you know what? All of this will be in the new management plan for Marrow Meadow, which will be updated
Yes.
for the first time in 1995.
Yes.
But meanwhile, to me, that might be a way to start, is to ask them to use a mower.
Yeah.
Rather than whatever huge piece of machinery they're using now.
Yeah.
It's in the work order in writing, use mower.
Yeah.
Use 20
And
inch
mow the
walking,
grass, not
20
the,
inch class walking
field
mower,
weeds.
Whatever, I
Yeah.
don't know, some very specific recommendation.
you know,
and I thought we had it, because
Must show
the
up
plants
on
have gotten really
roads.
tall, I'm thinking, well, now they're gonna see that they're part of the field, but no. Oh, well.
Like beyond what I can take out with.
How wide are the fan trees?
The down trees are not that big. The Widowmaker is one of these that's leaning out over it and it kind of diverted around it, but not.
No.
But
Yeah.
it's still gonna kick out in the direction I diverted around it.
I will send one of
Yeah.
my trails guys.
That-
out.
that
Yeah.
needs
It's a
to
big
go,
tree,
though.
cause
Where is it?
so the trail went, the tree is now leaning like this. The trail previously went under it. I've now made it so the trail goes
Yeah.
out this way, but it's broken here. So when the tree goes, it's gonna kick
yeah,
that way. And that is a big tree.
yeah.
I'll see what the tree warden will say.
Yeah.
And that's right near the felon entrance.
Yeah. Okay, what I did, Michael, to tell you what I did, went into the resident request to have the Simpson Wood sightlines, the sign cleared and poison ivy infringing on the parking lot. And then put in the text of what I was asking for, Jim Morrow Chair, Parks and Natural Resources Committee. We'll see what happens.
Well, it's more than just an issue of clearing the sightlines.
Yeah, Yeah.
The Simpson Wood sign is parallel to the road,
Yep,
yeah,
it
Which
won't
makes-
be when,
yeah.
which makes it very difficult
Yeah.
to see.
That's,
oh, it was there. There's no good turnaround points further up the road, yeah.
Yeah, because you
Fine, pull
can't,
into Ryan's house.
because you can't see Mount Hope entrance either coming
Well,
out.
Those will be blade signs, so
Yeah.
once we get
Yeah.
those replaced,
Yeah.
which fabrication is starting.
Well, the
next
thing
week.
is the Simpson Wood one is the new logo.
Yep,
Yeah.
so.
It
those
just
are-
needs, it just needs one for the back and then
It's just,
turn
yeah,
90 degrees.
it's the brand new sign and it's parallel to the road.
Yep, not particularly helpful.
Yeah.
So
But, you
that's gonna
know,
be fixed.
yeah. Okay, so do we have anything else on our agenda?
I
No.
move that we adjourn.
Second.
Opposed?
The chorus.
During 9:29.
You need some shoe goo.
Yeah, this shoe is, it's anyway.